A little bit of a
Peekaboo
of Ohio State. Oregon gets past Michigan State rather easily, 31-10. They win by 3 tuds. And you still get Duck fan crying on the text line or the text messages to Buddy. Oh, we're not perfect. We've got problems.
Somebody texted me a lot of sleepless nights for Landing this week, and I was like, well, yeah, I mean, it's a big game, but I don't think he's not sleeping because of that performance.
Well, can we let's just be honest here, because they're not going to admit this ever.
Yeah.
Doesn't it have a real feel? Because I've been following Ohio State. I've noted several times on this program, too many times to count, that team has also kind of been toying with their opponent.
7-0 at the half, if I'm not mistaken, against Iowa this weekend, and then they opened it up.
That's basically what all their games have been. It's like barely ahead at halftime. You're going, oh, my God, what's going on? They look weird. They're not functioning at the level you think they are. And then they win comfortably. I kind of had a feel now. I had this going into last week's games, and I think I feel even more firm on it, that both of those teams, while they won't admit it, have been looking at this game on their schedule for a very long time. And it's not that they didn't properly prepare. Obviously, Oregon overlooked Idaho. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
Janty is just ravaging college football. I mean,
the guy can't be stopped, man. He cannot be stopped.
He's got 1,000 yards already.
He didn't even play in the second half this weekend. Shame on Boise State, by the way, for not playing him in the second half.
Why?
Let him go for 400 yards and 17 tutties.
If he goes,
I want him to break every record. Okay, he had like 190 in the first half and 3 tuds, and they pulled him.
If he stays healthy, they're going to the playoff.
Yeah, they will,
and he will be in New York.
Yeah.
And I would argue, and if they're not in the playoffs, he should still be in New York. The dude is unbelievable.
He should win the Heisman right now. He should be the front runner.
And then Oregon State, that was the right opponent. I think right time. You guys had gotten your teeth kind of kicked in, tested. Oregon State has some weaknesses that kind of go well for what your strengths are. And then you beat UCLA, not really worrying about it. You beat Michigan State, not really worrying. I think Ohio State's done the same thing.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm fascinated by this week's matchup. These are two teams with a lot of expectation, a lot of hype. The number 2 and 3 teams in the new AP top 25 after everybody's lost. And so I actually think both programs, players, coaches, they won't admit it, but I think they've both been circling this on the calendar of, oh, my God, I can't wait till we can get to that week in October to play each other. It's going to be a national game. I think it's really stupid, but I understand why NBC is running with this rivalry crap. This is not a rivalry. Get out of here with that. But they're going to sell it that way, and I totally get why.
Yeah.
But I actually think both teams have been playing as if they've been looking at this game for over 2 months.
Well, it's honestly a credit. I know the opponents were not great. Cade McNamara might be the worst quarterback I've ever seen play football. Like, that guy doesn't do anything good, and how he is a Division I quarterback blows my mind.
Did they score by him throwing a tud or running it in? He still hadn't thrown a tud all season until that
they
game.
didn't get in the red zone. I know that. So the one touchdown that they had, I think, was a breakaway. I can't remember if it was a pass or throw, but he is awful, dude. He is so bad at football. And Michigan State's not good either, but...
Nope, he didn't have a touchdown. Another interception, though.
Yo, he did. It was a horrible pick. I saw that.
100 yards.
It was a testament, though, to both of them not having the look-ahead spot. Like, if we know anything about college football, look-ahead spots are a big deal, and letdown spots are a big deal. Historically speaking, if you've been a fan long enough, like, the conversation this week about Oregon and Ohio State will be, is this the biggest game ever at Autzen Stadium? To which the answer is yes. But it will then lead to what are some of the other big games. And I love that people are going to throw in 2003 against Michigan in there. Lightning strikes, Jason Fife on the cover of Sports Illustrated. An iconic win in the history of Oregon football. You know what happened to him the next week? Washington State came to town and beat him like 55-14. That is not a type, like 55-4, like they just obliterated them. So letdown spots and look-ahead spots are a thing, and it's a testament to both staffs.
Bama Vanderbilt.
Exactly, because I think you're spot on. I think both these teams have been trying to gear up and make sure they're firing on all cylinders for October 12th, and that's been their primary focus, and to not let their sights slip and drop a game before that when we have all these crazy upsets this year in the sport. Kudos to both of them for getting to this game undefeated.
Well, I think part of the reason I feel that way, and we talked about this a little bit last week, is with this expanded playoff now, margin of victory and style, none of that crap matters.
No.
You can argue it never really did.
No.
Because they were always going to get the teams in that they could get in. But my point is, when you have such an expanded playoff and the ability to win your conference and get in and then be an at-large, it's like Lanning could have ran that score up on UCLA. Why do I care?
Why am I trying?
We're up 28-10.
Yeah, game's over.
Game is over. We're up 31-14 7 on Michigan
It was
State.
31-0. They pulled their entire starting
Yes.
defense, which I was glad that they did.
They should.
Get them out of there.
But man, this is a massive game for Dan Lanning. I know it's a big game for a lot. Dylan Gabriel's throwing red zone picks, and you're probably right. Blip on his larger resume. Ryan Day and
it's a massive game for Ryan Day too, man. It's a huge deal for both of them.
I agree, but to a certain extent, I think it's the biggest deal for Lanning.
They might want to fire Ryan Day if he loses this game.
Well,
they already want to fire him because he goes 11-1 every year and he can't win the one big game.
Okay, but he's going to beat Michigan
locally
this year.
Yes, it's a bigger deal for Dan Lanning. But if they lose this game, Ohio State will not handle this.
Oh, see, I think nationally it's Lanning, and I don't think it's particularly close.
Okay,
Ryan Day's beaten Michigan. Ryan Day's been in the playoff. Ryan Day is definitely on a hot seat of some sorts for Ohio State fan.
Yeah.
Dan Lanning's biggest win to date is Kyle Whittingham in Utah.
Yeah, and UCLA and Chip Kelly a couple of years ago.
That wasn't a good team. So Utah, Kyle Whittingham is the best win for him, and he's 0-3 against Washington.
Yeah, I mean, he can't win big games, so they're going to lose this weekend. I can't wait to see it.
No, I'm not saying he can't win a big game. I just, to date, so far in his early tenure at Oregon.
He needs one of these.
Yes,
he definitely needs one of these under his belt, which is why I think there's so much excitement for how it's going to go, what the reaction will be, the fallout either way. This is essentially your first playoff game of the year.
Yes,
if you win this game, you're in the college football playoff. I have a hard time seeing whoever wins this game losing 2 more times. You would have a marquee win on your schedule. You would have the head-to-head advantage over Ohio State or Oregon, vice versa, depending on who wins.
Absolutely.
And the rest of their schedules, I know Ohio State's got Penn State in a couple of weeks. We'll see how they do this weekend in L.A. I imagine they should win that game. Michigan is terrible. They can't throw a forward pass. Wisconsin's not scaring anybody.
Oh, I think Penn State's going to lose.
They might, but I have a hard time seeing either of whoever wins this game. I have a hard time seeing losing 2 times the rest of the year, and so you're essentially in and maybe even a lock for the Big Ten championship game. And so this game is for all you want to boil it down to. It's basically a playoff elimination game or invitation game for whoever wins it.
And I think you're so right on that. But I would also counter. It was interesting that there were 2 responses I saw this week in Dirt. One was Bama losing, and Bama fan tweeting. Spencer Hall, season's over, we're done, we're cooked. And I saw another one where it's like, the expanded playoff sucks because these losses don't matter anymore.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's somewhere in the middle, but I think largely the passion of the sport lends itself more to the Alabama opinion of, oh my God, our season's over.
Yeah.
If you lose this game, if Ohio State loses this game, I'm still picking probably both of them to make the playoff.
Yes, I will still like the loser
expand.
of the game to make it because I just look at the rest of the top 15 right now in the country and it is utter chaos.
Well, the conference too. I mean, Penn State, good. Michigan, feisty, but largely like Oregon goes to Wisconsin in November, right? Mid-November?
Or early November.
Early November. Even if it's a little cold. I've seen Wisconsin play.
Yes.
So I don't think the Big Ten is particularly strong. I think it's very, very top heavy. And so I think the loser of this game can still make the playoff. But to your point, it's an early like little playoff preview we're getting this weekend where we go, okay, Will Howard, how are you against a real big opponent on the road, hostile environment? Oregon, okay, you had some red zone turnovers, but largely you seem to have figured out your offensive line and your run game, and your defense has been stout. Here comes Ohio State and all the weapons, the receivers. I mean, my God, every year there's another receiver for Ohio State, and the defensive line is super experienced. So I'm with you. I think the playoff vibe of this game, even if it doesn't derail one of the team's seasons, it's absolutely going to have the energy of it.
Well, and the reaction to it either way will be big, right? Like Lanning needs one of those big wins under his belt. I'll push back in a little bit on Ryan Day. I think he is under a ton of pressure this year. And if they are to lose this game, Ohio State's, their heads will fall off. If he falls to 0-2 against Oregon and they lose this game, it doesn't mean anything for them the rest of the year. That's just the reality of the sport that we're living in. Oregon, by the way, goes to Wisconsin at the, November 16th. So it is towards the end of November.
All right.
And that's right before they play Washington near the end of the season. But it just, I think the biggest question I have is quarterback play and how is it an advantage for Oregon in this game? Because I would have told you yes, and then Gabriel had the last 2 games that he's had, where it felt like in the Oregon State game and the first half of the UCLA game, he was playing at an elite level and basically not throwing incompletions, and now you have these weird clunky turnovers. But I have always felt like coming into this game, it's the biggest advantage that Oregon has. There's not a lot of them. I think they're very equal. Ohio State probably has the edge at a number of different positions. But quarterback to me is one that Oregon can have a massive advantage in. And primarily for me, it's because I think Gabriel's better, but two, he has a ton of big game experience. This guy's been in a lot of different scenarios. One of the most memorable games of last season for me in the entire sport was Oklahoma and Texas, which is going to happen this weekend. And who was it with the ball in his hands with a minute to go who led a game-winning touchdown drive to be the only team in the regular season until Washington to beat Texas? It was Dylan Gabriel. So he's playing in a lot of these big environments, a lot of these big games. He has big wins under his belt. And so him bringing that experience to the table a little more so than a quarterback from Kansas State would, I'm hoping is going to be an advantage. He just has to clean up the turnovers in the red zone.
Yeah, Will Howard, though, to his point, and what he did at Kansas State, I think that's the other part of this too. Is just look, which one has the advantage? Gabriel's stats are slightly better. He's got a couple more 100-yard games.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's 200 yards more than Will Howard. Largely, it's 12 tuds to 3, 11 tuds to 3. So
yeah,
it's interesting. The advantage is there an advantage in coaching, and is there an advantage at quarterback going into this game? And I think if you did you couldn't do this poll question locally because everybody's going to vote for the Oregon Duck. But I wonder if you threw it nationally, if you did like a Paul Feinbaum college football poll question, who is the better coach, Lanning or Day? Who is the better quarterback, Howard or Gabriel? I'd be fascinated to see those results.
Yeah, because they're very similar coaches. Ryan Day's been a coach much longer than Dan Lanning, a head coach at least. But they're very similar because they have the same label. It's guys that are elite, doing a great job with their program, but what are they missing? They're missing the one thing that matters the most, the statement win. And I know Ryan Day...
I think Day's had a couple of those, though, and I think that's the difference. I'm not
then
saying
you lose
he's
3
not
straight
under
years
pressure.
to Michigan.
Okay, but he's beaten Michigan. He's been in a playoff.
He has.
Lanning hasn't done any of that.
No, he has not.
So I think there's a slight advantage in terms of like what you've done on your resume today.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's Lanning.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but I'll be curious to see how both fan bases handle the win or loss this weekend. It's going to be fun.
I can already feel the energy from you. I think you are antsy and you're pantsy for this one.
I can't wait, man. I can't wait for Saturday.
Are you going to be okay staying in Eugene for this one?
Probably not. It's not good for my mental health, but I'm going to do it anyways. Okay. Damn it.